Achari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading first canto Srimad Bhagavatam, 17th chapter, text 29. Tam Jigham Sam Api Pretya Vihaya Nripa Lachanam Tat Pada Mulam Sirasa Samogad Vaya Vibhala Tam Jignasam Apapritya Vihaya Nipralachananam Tat Padamulam Surasa Samogad Vaya Vibhala Tam Jignasam Apapritya Vihaya Nipralachanam Tat Padamulam Sirasa Samagadbaya Vibhala Tam Jignasam Apritya Vihaya Nipralachanam Tat Padamulam Sirasa Samagadbaya Vibhala
Tam Jigam Sum Abhipretya
Tam Jigam Sam Apapritya
Vihaya Nripalanchana
Vihaya Nipralachanam
Tat Padamulang Shurasa
Tat Padamulam Surasa
Samagadbhaya Vibhala
Samagadbaya Vibhala
Tam Jigani Sam Abhipretya
Tamagasam Apapritya
Vihaya Nripalanchana
Vihaya Nipralachanam
Tat Padamulam Shurasa
Tat Padamulam Surasa Samagadbaya Vibhala
Tam Jigam Sum Abhipretya
Tam Jigam Sam Apapritya
Vihaya Nripalanchanam
Vihaya Nipralachanam
Tat Padamulam Shirasa
Tat Padamulam Sirasa
Samagadbhaya Vibhala
Samagadbaya Vibhala
Tam Jigam Sam Abhipretya
Tam Jigam Sam Apapritya
Vihaya Nripalanchanam
Vihaya Nipralachanam
Tat Padamulam Shirasa
Tat Padamulam Sirasa
Samagadbhaya Vibhala
Samagadbaya Vibhala
Socha Tam Jigam
Tam jigam sum abhipretya
Tam jam sam apritya
vihaya nipalanchanam
vihaya nipralachanam
tatpadami mulam shirasa
tatpadamulam sirasa
samagadpaya vivalaha
samagadvaya vivala
tam jigam sum abhipretya
tam jam sam apritya
vihaya nipalanchanam
vihaya nipralachanam
tatpadamulam sirsasa
tatpadamulam sirasa
samagadpaya vivala
samagadvaya vivala
Tam jigam samahipita
tam jam sam apritya
vihaya nripalanjanam
vihaya nipralachanam
tatpada mulam shirsta
tatpadamulam sirasa
samagadbaya vivala
samagadvaya vivala So everybody chanted
tam jigam sum abhipretya
tam jam sam apritya
vihaya nipalanchanam
vihaya nipralachanam
tatpadamulam shirasa
tatpadamulam sirasa
samagadvaya vivalaha
samagadvaya vivala
Tam
tam jam sam apritya vihaya nipralachanam tatpadamulam sirasa samagadvaya vivala
Tam jigam sumabhipretya
tam jam sam apritya
vihaya nripalanjanam
vihaya nipralachanam
tatpadamulam shirasa
tatpadamulam sirasa
samagadbhaya vivalaha
samagadvaya vivala. So is that it? Everybody chanted? Anyone online? So I'll do the word by word. Tam, him, jigam sam, willing to kill. Abhipretya, knowing it well. Vihaya, leaving aside. Nipralachanam, the dress of a king. Tadpada mulam, at his feet. Sudasa, by the head. Samagat, fully surrendered. Vaya vivala, under pressure of fearfulness. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. When the personality of Kali understood that the king was willing to kill him, he at once abandoned the dress of a king and, under pressure of fear, completely surrendered to him, bowing his head. Purport: the royal dress of the personality of Kali is artificial. The royal dress is suitable for a king or kshatriya, but when a lower class man artificially dresses himself as a king, his real identity is disclosed by the challenge of a bona fide kshatriya like Maharaj Perskit. A real kshatriya never surrenders. He accepts the challenge of his rival kshatriya, and he fights either to die or to win. Surrender is unknown to a real kshatriya. In the age of Kali, there are so many pretenders dressed and posed like administrators or executive heads, but their real identity is disclosed when they are challenged by a real kshatriya. Therefore, when the artificially dressed personality of Kali saw that to fight Maharaj Perskit was beyond his ability, he bowed down his head like a subordinate and gave up his royal dress. So there's some really good points right there. is that this Kali was artificially dressed. But there's one good thing, though, is that because he surrendered to Maharaj Pushkar, although a real Kshatriya never does so, that Maharaj Pushkar had compassion on Kali, because now he's poor. He gave up his royal dress. He's poor and he's surrendering. So Maharaj Pushkar, he doesn't kill him. He just simply tells him that he can't. He banishes him from every area of his kingdom, and he can only reside where there's prostitution or illicit sex or gambling and intoxication and meat eating. So in that way, it was devised that Kali would be driven out of Pushkar Maharaj's kingdom. And Prabhupada, I was reading, he was stating that, it was a Back to Godhead magazine article. It was stating that if Kali remained within Maharaj Pushkar's kingdom, wherever he would go, he would be fearful that he would see Maharaj Pushkar again coming to kill him with his bows and arrows and his chariot. So that was a pretty good point. So this illustrates a lot of good things, that without Krishna, it's only just a bunch of zeros. It's Prabhupada was saying that if you take 2 plus 2 and try to make it equal 5, that's not right. That's wrong. That's a mathematical equation that 2 plus 2 is 4. It's not 5, like in any language. So the whole basic principle is wrong. There's the basic identification with the material body. And so that's the complete erroneous concept. What Prabhupada was stating in some lectures is nirmama, nirahankara, that this is not me and everything is Krishna's, like that. So to use everything Krishna's service, that we're not the false material body, but we're the spiritual soul, part and parcel of Krishna. So the actual real occupational duty, or the dharma of the living entity, is to engage in Krishna consciousness or God consciousness. But in the human form of life, it's awarded to be able to understand what is Krishna and how to get out of the material world. Prabhupada was talking about, I guess, the killing of Hiranyakashipu. Saying that the demons and the Mayavadis, they get the same result. They get the same benefits, that they get to merge into the Supreme Brahman, the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So generally, that's the general concept of the world's major religions. Is basically it's all impersonal in the ultimate sense, and that you'll become one with God, or merge into the light of love, or if they're even thinking like going to heaven, their concept of death. This is what they say. Well, it's really sad to say, but so and so, well, he's died and he's gone to heaven. And you think of forms of angels playing harps. They have their harps and their wings. Like that. So, but the actual real reality of things are, if they do not know that due to illusion, that they're engaging in sinful activities, and everything's simply sinful. Everything's just simply material. Even though merging into the Supreme Brahman is temporary, and that's considered to be a material activity also, from dharma, kama, artha, moksha. So from material religiosity, Prabhupada was saying that that's normal for human societies, religion, some sort of faith or dharma. So one wants to be known as a religious person or a charitable person. And then there's economic development. So one now works hard to acquire a mass amount of money to take care of his family, make his legacy, and like that, try to build a large empire like that. That's their desires. amass a lot of wealth. And so then for sense gratification. So because the false identification with the material body is the erroneous concept, they're believing that to engage in sense gratification is the ultimate goal of life, even right up to the point of death. That's the most important thing, like that. I remember we were sitting in front of our TVs. So then, like, we go over to our friend's house, like for Thanksgiving dinner, or Christmas dinner, or Easter, or for any other purpose, right? We go over to dinner. But what do? We go to somebody else's house to watch TV, right? So that was like the most important thing in the world, is the whole world life of television. And in the car, we listened to the radio. So yeah, we were totally bombarded by specific media. Yeah, and they subtly, they have like the current trends of the day. So they're like subtly influencing you, like how you should actually really think and act, like that. And so Prabhupada, he was talking about how, then the last stage is moksha. So after becoming frustrated with the material world, the one that desires to ultimately become one with the Supreme Brahman. So this Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, this is coming and going. And the impersonalist, because there's no activity, there's no shelter there. Prabhupada was saying it's just like a boat on an ocean or a plane. It's traveling through the sky. There's no shelter there. There's just, you have to come down from the air. The plane has to land. Or Prabhupada was saying he had experience of this when he was on the Jaladuta, that he was just wishing just to see land, finally see land, like that. Just nothing but water and ocean for miles and miles and miles, thousands of miles. Just finally see land and you're relieved, because that's our real position. So a real position for the spiritual soul is God consciousness or Krishna consciousness, not engaging in sinful activity, which is accumulating a total mass heap of karma for future enjoyment or suffering, mostly future suffering in the lower animal species. This state is not known. They don't know their past lives, they don't know their future lives. They don't believe or think that now they're going to become animals. So that's the prerogative of the human form of life, to become God conscious, according to religious and godly principles, like that. And in that way, could be happy. Jai Gora Nitai Ki Jai. And in that way, the entire atmosphere of Kali Yuga can be purified. So we have practical example. We see this, so many different things are materializing. So the Krishna conscious movement is purifying the age of Kali. It's gradual, but it's a very potent process of Krishna consciousness. Just within a short period of time, one can understand and feel that they're making progress in Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada, he was talking about this, like, he was saying that don't accept any blank checks, like in the future. He says, now they want to make super beings, right? This was on a website where they have Srila Prabhupada's daily activities for a whole month, and it has his lectures and his morning walks. So on a morning walk, he was saying like that. They want to make super beings, but they can't even make a single ant, make a single ant try to walk, make a single ant. But these rascals, they want to make super beings. So he says, we're not so fools. So the fools and rascals, Prabhupada is saying, first they say there's some explosion when he's talking about the creation, the Big Bang. He says, because they're all rascals and fools, they just accept it. He said, but from where did the explosion come from or take place? First, there's nothing, and then you have some place where an explosion happens. It's like, where did the materials for the explosion come from? Right? Where did the place come from to explode it? Like that. So he says, because they're fools and rascals, they don't ask. He said, generally in the material world, there's some sort of investigation. They'll try to investigate the size or the weight or the substance of the bomb, and it blew up like this, and it went like that, and who's responsible for the bombing? You know, who you know, what agency, or you know, who set the bomb off. So they do some investigation, where they say they're not investigating, they say there's just some explosion. And they say, but we accept them. And so many different varieties of life are just accidental like that. It's just a one-time shot. There's consciousness is a combination of material elements. So everything is finished at the time of death. You know, we don't understand and we don't know why, but that's just the way it is. Or something. But somebody have a question, Maharaj, just a comment?
Yes. Thank you. The importance of Varnashram is explained here that one advantage of Varnashram would be that a person who claims to be the leader, or shall we say the head of the administration, has to have the qualifications of a real leader. He has to have the descriptions given by Gita, that a Kshatriya, he never refuses to fight. He never stand up for Dharma. He's naturally leading and things like that. So that can't be imitated because the challenge is by a real Kshatriya. Then a tending king will fail to meet the challenge, just as bluffing. The story goes that there was a jackal that fell into a pot of purple dye, or blue dye. And so he was unusual. No one had ever seen any creature with such a color. And so when they had all the creatures in the jungle, including even the lion, they were submissive to him and said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm God." So they all surrendered to him. But then one night they heard, when the jackal heard the jackal howling, he began to howl also. He couldn't resist his normal tendency. And when he howled like a jackal, then the lion knew, and then he ate it. So imitation can only go so far. If there's really a Kshatriya, it's like take it for Brahmins. We have persons saying how the universe is working and what is life, and just chemicals, etc. That can only stand as long as we're not challenged by a real Brahman, one who knows the nature of spirit and matter. I can explain. So in this way, Varnashram system can be utilized. We're not interested in material Varnashram, because that doesn't solve the problem of life. But when Varnashram is utilized in the service of Krishna, Varnashrama Charata Pushina Purakama Arajite Panta Anyat Toshakara, that the purpose of Varnashram, these four divisions of society, are to serve, use their occupation to serve the Lord and to please Vishnu. then it becomes transcendental. Just like anything, food or an automobile, if it's used in the service of the Lord, it becomes transcendental. Similarly, the Varnashram system of social orders is not a bad thing if it's used properly in the service of the Lord. It becomes a very transcendental system that will help bring society back to God consciousness. Thank you.
So thank you very much for that. Yeah, so the Varnashram system is a very important scientific system that for understanding God consciousness of the 4 Varnas and 4 ashrams, we have the laborers, the Sudras, the mercantile and agricultural, the Vaishyas, cow protection, and for the administrative functions, leadership, we have the Kshatriyas, and then for spiritual leadership, we have the Brahmanas. So that's a good point, is that it takes a Brahmana, a real learned Brahmana, someone like Srila Prabhupada, who came to challenge these scientists, these fools, these rascals, like that, with the real information of the Shastras, Srimad Bhagavatam, the Vedic literatures, that we're spiritual soul, we're not material. Consciousness is eternal, and is subtle science of transmigration of the soul, not that everything is just finished, the person is done at the time of death, and that animals have souls, and to advise everyone that society is based on, at the present moment, sinful activities. So that's good. Prabhupada would always say, this is my challenge to those fools. In light of the scientists, philosophers, Prabhupada was saying that Krishna, he is the supreme scientist, the supreme philosopher, the supreme ruler, is the supreme chemist, like that, supreme mathematician, everything supreme. So Krishna is just creating the entire material cosmos, Mahatattva, millions of universes, with just a spark of his splendor. And he enters into the universe himself as super soul and Brahman. And he's witnessing the activities of the living entities, and is supporting and maintaining the universes within each and every atom. So the whole universe becomes alive, becomes agitated by the 3 modes of material nature, becomes under the control of Durga Devi, but those who are surrendered to Krishna are under the control of the divine potency, like that, and are protected. So that's the whole point. Prabhupada, and then the qualifications, the real qualifications, not just someone who has the dress. Prabhupada was talking about that. We were mentioning also, it was mentioned in class yesterday, that the real Kshatriya, the real king or the ruler, he would go out to the battlefield and fight with his so-called leadership that we have now, our presidents, prime ministers, and Congress. They're elderly, they're old. I guess President Kennedy was like the youngest president in history. So I guess, what are they saying? They have to, they're over the age of 50. They're supposed to be retiring, but they're so attached to the post, they still remain within political activities. Prabhupada was talking about in a lecture how the yogis, they come down from their platform of Brahman and take up political activities, become the prime minister or another type of politician. But politicians, it's a dirty business. So he gets caught for his illegal activities in politics and then goes to prison like that. So now he's got all the time in the world to meditate in the prison cell. So that's not a good proposition like that. But, they were saying we're not against government, but Prabhupada was saying is that we want to install God conscious or Krishna conscious leaders in government. I think Maharaj mentioned that before. Yeah, and he has a question, but I want to mention one more thing about the jackal. He fell into the dye. Everybody thought it was a special god, so they worshipped him until he showed his real nature, howling like the jackals. Maharaj gave the example one time that if you were to see, there's a dog, he's got a crown on his head, and he's sitting on the throne, and he's freshly bathed and totally pampered, and he's well-natured, and he's sitting on the throne, and he has a crown. You go, no, it's not the king. You know, that's ridiculous, right? But you see, he's so regal, and so many of the things are going on. You go, well, maybe he is the king. Right? You start taking some, right? But then you throw a shoe, right? The dog will show its nature. All of a sudden, he goes after the shoe. Oh, yeah, he's just a dog. He's not the king. Like that. So, but there was examples. I guess some rich person, I think this is where they bought the Atlanta Temple building from. He didn't have a family, so he had a dog, so he gave his entire wealth to his dog, and there's the shrine for the dog, like that. So everyone leaves their entire inheritance to the dog. So that's just simply foolishness. It should be used in God conscious activities. Yeah, so you had a question?
Yesterday, I noticed that there's a lot of people who do exercise, and I was thinking that everyone in this age is trained as a Shudra, just make a paycheck. Well, and I was thinking that why is it that all these people are just like running and running and running and running, doing so much physical activity just after work, just for fun? And I was thinking of how if this is connected to their nature as a Shudra, and how actually the Shudra is meant to do hard labor by his occupation, so they have to make up for that after work or something like that. Is that there?
Yeah, they're not working so hard in the factories like they used to. Now you sit in a desk in a cubicle with a telephone and a computer. So they're not utilizing a lot of physical activity. So, but the jogging movement became popular. Prabhupada was saying that now it's popular to jog. They have jogging magazine. They started coming out with jogging gear, and bicycling, and bicycling became popular. Everyone wanted to get at 10 speeds, and people would ride their 10 speed to work instead of drive to work, or jog to work or something. But Prabhupada was saying that, they can become a horse in their next life and they're running. But, I remember there's a TV show, they're saying, it's in the future. They're going, okay, finger exercises, push button exercises. Exercise your fingers for pushing those buttons. It's in the future. They're not, they live in space. They're not so physically, involved. So they need to make up for that to keep their body fit. Prabhupada said we keep our bodies fit by working hard for Krishna, like that. So, I see the people are walking on the treadmills, just right over here. If you go up the hill up here, you see them, they're exercising, have the weights and walking on the treadmills, and a lot of people jogging around the neighborhood. That's good for them. Maybe they can think about God consciousness when they do that. So think about some creative, constructive things, but, Prabhupada said we don't really need to do that, I guess we have some injuries or something, some yoga or some stretches or something might be good, but, just by performing a devotional service to Krishna and working hard for Krishna is sufficient. Then at night, we work so hard and we lay down, we're ready to take rest, to go to sleep and dream about Krishna, like that. So, you got a question or comment?
Hare Krishna. Thanks for your nice class, Prabhu. I just had a question. You mentioned some Sanskrit at the beginning of your talk. Was it Niramam Ahankara?
Oh, yeah, Niramama Ahankara, yeah. Yeah, nir means nil or void, nothing, nir. And then nir ahankara. Ahankara is ego, false identification with the material body. So nir ma'an, nir ahankara. That this is not mine, everything is Krishna's. Yeah, Prabhupada was stating that in Sanskrit. I believe it's in Bhagavad Gita, some Bhagavad Gita verses that he was explaining that we are part and parcel of Krishna. Remember, serving Krishna, and everything else is Krishna's. That or was it that we become attached by false proprietorship, but everything's actually really Krishna's. It's not ours. Yeah, was that your answer to your question? Yeah, where that came from? Yeah.
Hare Krishna. I was wondering if Varna exists in the spiritual world, because you mentioned that, or Maharaj mentioned that that the Kshatriyas who become leaders, they only fight for the sake of dharma, and also, like you mentioned, that the Vaishyas, they protect the cows. I just wonder, like in the spiritual world, is that necessary? And yeah, so does the Varna exist in the spiritual world?
Well, everything in the material world is a reflection of the spiritual world, except there's no fighting and there's no wars. That's why Krishna comes to the material world. He has a chivalrous spirit, so he fights. But it's here, he becomes a king and the prince and engages in battle and warfare. But it's here on the earthly planet, not in Goloka Vrindavan. But everything, Prabhupada said, everything that's here in the material world is there in the spiritual world, but in its pure form. Prabhupada was saying, if you hear about some place to go to, you become attracted, you'll want to go there. I gave you the example of going on a vacation to a foreign country, maybe to Europe, or he was talking about if you want to go to San Francisco, or he got a letter from, what was his name? His last name is Cohen, but he got Bob Cohen, yeah. So he got a letter from Bob Cohen saying how it is in California. So I said, so you'd want to go there, you'd want to see the place. So when you hear how the spiritual world has the Kalpa Vrikshas and the Sarabis and how everyone's engaged in devotional service, and hear, so many activities so there, the devotees, then you become attracted, you'll want to go there. So Prabhupada was talking about so many different things on the absolute platform, that the taste of water and the sound of water and water it's all the same thing. If you say water, it is water, like that. So it's all the same thing. Krishna is in his sound and his name. So if you say Krishna, this is Krishna, and it's full potency and everything with Krishna, like that. So in the material world, the sound, the name, the actual form of water, they're different things. It's a label. Water is water in any other language, right? But it's not the same language, but it's not specifically the substance of water itself, like it is in the spiritual world. So Prabhupada was giving these examples like that on the absolute platform. Yeah, did that answer your question, or? Yeah. So are there any other questions or comments, or maybe we can end class there? Srimad Bhagavatam class ki jai.